Okay, so now, let me introduce our second speaker to you. Mr. Paulo Branco is a Portuguese independent film producer. Since he has produced or co-produced over 300 films, working with Portuguese and international directors. According to John Malkovich, Mr. Branco is possibly the most prestigious producer of art film in the history of cinema. In 1997, he was named greatest European producer by the European Parliament. Many of his films have been presented at the Festival of Cannes and Venice. Embracing cooperation between cinema, literature, music, and visual art, he constantly broadened the public culture formation and encouraged reflection and debate on the great issue of our time. The title of his lecture is How Producing Films Can Be Creative Process. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Branco to the stage. Mr. Branco wants to discuss with, especially in this stage, there are many scientists. So, anyway, start your talk.
Thank you. I don't know how to start because I'm very impressed with the audience and what I heard in the last days. And I had in the past some, I was in a university in chemistry, some of these words for me were familiar at that time. And with the time now, it's like enigmas. But it was really a pleasure to be back in the middle of a scientist world. And I can start with the phrase I put at starting of my speech, is our producer can be part of a creative process in a way. That what is a producer? A producer is someone that is like a principle of reality for the artists. In a way, is to make the dreams and of the artist to be real. It's we are like what someone says in French, passeur. We can say go-between between their, creative process and after to make them exist. It's something that when I started because one of the words is a curiosity. I was very curious about how, this incredible, masterpiece that when we start reading, seeing films, going to the museums, who were behind that. When you read Dostoevsky, when you see Tolstoy, when you go to see the Leonardo paintings, when we hear to music, how, this could become reality, and how, the influence of that in our life. I think art, one of the things that, makes us better, all of us. These feelings we have in contact with these masterpieces bring us things that we cannot maybe tell in words, but they stay inside us. That's what I feel when I'm in contact with art. That's why art is, from the starting of humanity, is something that is still there, and even when someone sends the space things to the, puts things, of art inside, to maybe if they find other civilizations, it's what our printing is, the art. And that's why how someone like me, that was not an artist, I'm not an artist, could in a way participate in the creative world. And cinema is something that needs these go-betweens, because if you write, you can write alone in any time. If you're painting, the same. Even the composers can do it. Some of them after no one, hear what they do, because after there's to be the second thing is to be, that can be played. But cinema, the directors, the true directors, they need someone to make and to help them to make what they dream, they work to be a reality. And that's what I was so fascinating, and that's what I find my place in a way. And I was very lucky because I started, and at the same time, I have an enormous privilege because, in a way, I have to share their world. I have to be part of it. I have to, in a way, understand, to have the intuition to know where they want to go. And if you do, and my, privilege that I'm not doing that only one, I'm sharing at the same time these so different worlds, because, any film director has his own conception of life, conception of art, conception of what they want to tell to us, and they are completely different. And to share this experience with, for all these years, with all these so different personalities, it's really something that I have to be grateful, because I have to be at they can look at me and have some respect for me, and to have their respect, it's so incredible, And when finally the film is there, finally, it's a kind of, proud that something exists, and because of me, is as well because of me, not completely, everybody can see it. And when you work, I can give some stories, because if not, it's too theoretical. But, when I start working, I start with someone that he had already 75 years old. He was born in 1906. He made his first movie when he was 22 and 28. And this first movie was so, modern, that it was, completely in Portugal, no one liked it until the one they know, a great writer, Italian, Luigi Pirandello, in the 30s, came to Portugal and to any, kind of symposium, and they showed the movie in a public projection, and he came in. Everybody was doing this with the feet, protesting about the film, and he made a quote, a fantastic quote, saying, "I didn't know that in in Portugal, they applaud with the feet, because he loved. And this gentleman, the Manuel de Oliveira, I don't think that you know, but he's one of the greatest. He was one of the greatest directors in the world. He got a lot of prizes here in Japan, and I met him when he was 75 years old. And because of the political things in Portugal, the dictator and everything, he could not make mostly, he made until then 1 or 2 films and some short ones. And I was 29 years old and I was starting producing, and he came to me and said, "Paulo, do you want to produce me?" And I was so, astonishing about that I said, yes, why not? And I didn't know what was producing. I learned doing it. And I learned trying to understand what he wanted, what things he needed that the film could be made, why he had so much problems, why nobody understood him when he made it. And there I started, to understand that I could be creative to do this job. And the film was made. The film was a enormous critic success in France. That changed completely his life. And from that point, and he started 75 years old, we start making a film almost every year. And a moment in the age, he was 85 years old, because he had problems before the revolution, and he was an industrial at the same time and everything. He lost everything. He lost the house, an incredible house that he had constructed when he was young. He had to sell everything, and he came at 85 years old and came and told me, "Paulo, now I need to leave from making films." He was 85 years old. And until he was 100, we made 22 films together. And we were all over the world. But it was a kind of, a lesson for my life. Every day it's different. Every day something can happen. Every day the artists, they are at the same time, they feel strong and they are very fragilized. And we have to understand each of them. They are all different. Every film is a prototype. Any time that you want to adaptate old, already, ways of doing that we know, we fail. We have to every day in a way to invent the way that the films to be a reality. And there was so much experience. At the same time, for example, I started working with someone that was really a psychiatric case. It was completely borderline. It was one of the greatest geniuses, but it was someone that we don't know what reality it was. It was called João César Monteiro. It's difficult. I don't think you saw a film of them. But it was an incredible experience of life to work with someone like that for 30 years, with a lot of fights, a lot of, I received from him the best, letters I ever received, but they were insulting me. But they were fantastic because we had fights, because we wanted to do something. And there is an ultimate experience at the end. He's someone that he was a kind of Charlie Chaplin, comedy, but he was the actor of almost all his films. And one day, he wanted to adaptate a novel from a great Swiss writer called Robert Walser. Robert Walser wrote a novel, an incredible novel called Blanche-Neige, and he wanted that any price to adaptate it. I bought the rights, and it was a 3 years experience from someone trying to read the material with this novel to find the form to make it a film. And more than that, he wanted to be respectful to this novel. He liked it so much. And for 3 years, I remembered, we start seeing, no, we do it in French. Okay, we need actors in French. Okay, we went and tried to find actors and to find everything. We found it, when actors and the actors, and they say, we need to buy the costumes immediately, because if not, we bought the costumes and everything. We do all this in a studio. We have to construct all the sets and everything, okay, and everything. 2 months after, say, I think I prefer to do it in Portuguese. I have to say to the actors, sorry, and I have to come and Portuguese actors, the same. Okay, going like this, I bought so many costumes for that film that for no other one, because we were always changing. It wasn't after you. And at the moment, I start understanding that somewhere, the way he wanted to do the film was something completely radical. And one day he said, now I need to shot not in studio, we shot in a great garden, in a botanic garden in Lisbon. But there is an enormous statue, we have to take this out. All the things to take out the statue, all the difficulties, the statue can go out and everything. And when the day of starting of the shooting started, he registered all the dialogues, and he came with the camera, with the crew, with the actors, and he said, I was not there, I was, I think, in Paris that day. And someone called me, he shot against a black wall, and he shot for 1 hour and 10 against a black wall. And he said, he doesn't need any more. The film is done. And they said, what we do? And I said, if he said so, the film is done. And he went to editing the film, and he said, and I said to him, now it's easy, editing this is very easy. It's all black. And he said, no, Paulo, there is black and black. Now we have to choose the blacks, And I said, oh my God. Well, the film was ready with the incredible, the sound, all black. Sometimes there is a small blue. And I said, and now, how I can defend this film? Because now was made with some public money, the film has to be shown, and at the same time, is someone that is such a genius that I wanted him to go on doing other films and not going, to be condemned, definitely. And it was, a scandal all over Europe. And, but it's true. He was so respectful to this novel that he thought the way to give his, the way of seeing of the novel was in that form. Luckily, that was already in the past other kind of radical moments like that, like the black paint of Malevich, and I had to take, a kind of explanation about what he felt and what is the respect, and that was really a kind of artist way of seeing this novel. The film went to a festival, and the film now is one of the films that is more seeing from him, but at that moment, and that was something that I had to understood. I had to have the intuition before what happens and to be ready that if something happens like that, could defend the film itself. That's one of the examples, and producing is always like that. You are there for making the artist, bringing their world to the reality. And one of the examples, for example, Wim Wenders, that I think is a director maybe you heard about, the great, I made a few films with him, and one of them was something he wanted to come back to Lisbon to make a film. And he told me, Paulo, if you find me a musical group or team, I do the film. I want to do a film about the sound, about the music. And at that time, a small group was starting, and I told him, I think I have someone for you. And he met them, was Madre de Deus, and he made a film called Lisbon Story. And in Japan, the CD of Madre de Deus was sold 1 million exemplars, And that was born in a conversation with Wim Wenders. This is what makes, this profession, this kind of adventure every day. Because when you have the chance of working with such people, you learn and you feel that you are bringing something to the other human beings. Lately, I'm organizing a festival in Estoril, in Lisbon, where what I pretend more than that, it make them together, put them together in a way that they can, but mostly of them don't know the work of the other ones. And make the artists together, it's incredible to make them talk with each other, to make them know the work of each other, and many different things that happened. For example, I showed something everybody here, I think knows here, Lou Reed. He came, and what I made, I showed them things that nobody knew. I showed the photos that he was making. I show a film that he has made about his aunt. I discussed with him everything except what everyone wanted is the Velvet Underground. We had the chance to have for 1 week Lou Reed with us and talking with everyone. The other one, for example, if the ones that know classic music, they know Alfred Brendel, and I brought Alfred Brendel to read the poems that he wrote himself, and to make him, know other artists that were there. Another one, Martha Argerich, I know if you want, is one of the greatest pianists, and she came 2 years ago, and she found that she was completely amazed with the work of a great American director called Jim Jarmusch. To make Francis Ford Coppola came and to talk about with the great writer Don DeLillo. All these is things that, in a way, makes me, to be grateful to have the chance of bring all these artists together and to see how they, as all of them have an enormous curiosity, enormous curiosity. You know, even one of the Fields Prize, Cedric Villani, came to the festival and was part of the jury of the cinema, and he was there discussing with Jim Jarmusch, with Jonathan Demme, with Laurie Anderson, with all these incredible persons that I had the chance to have there. This is, in a way, the thing that makes me, what I say, you know, makes my life to be any day. I don't know what's going on the other day, and every day I have to be prepared for something, some surprise, because all of this is made as well with you never know what can. When you do a film is like a prototype. You don't know what can happen. You never know. There is surprises every day. You know, we have to solve every day. You know, and we have to have a kind of relation. It's like a couple with a director, because we cannot force a director to do. If he cannot do, if, for example, he says, okay, today I stay in bed, I don't want to work, I cannot do anything, you know. Only persuading that a film is not only him, everything is there, the actors and everything. You know, the actors, they are so different one of the others and so fragilized at the same time. That is absolutely, and we have to meet in the middle, you know, to solve all these sometimes misunderstandings that can happen and everything, because not everything is easy. Not everything is happy when we produce a film. On the contrary, there is a lot of contradictions, a lot of different things to organize, and that is my life. I don't know if I would like to know, before going with the stories, if you want, if I don't, what you be interested to know more about this this kind of world that at the same time is like the science, because when you see it, you know, it's very easy, you know. When I was in the chemistry, for me the Maxwell equations were like a poem. I have to decipherate them, but it was like a poem as well. You know, the relation between science and art is much more close than we can think. Much more. You can see even in the cinema how they are completely, you know, sometimes seduced by, you know, the science point of life. You know, you can see, you know, when you see Matrix, for example, if you saw, you know, it's like, you know, adaptation of all the quantum, you know, quantum mechanics to the cinema. You know, how, you know, where a poem of, you know, of T.S. Eliot, time past, time present is in time future. What is the modern science than that? And all these, you know, all these relations between the artistic world and the scientific world, sometimes we think they are completely separated. No, it's not true. You know, in everything that we do, there is something part of something that is completely artistic, and that's the only thing that we have to see it. Something. There is a way of seeing the things, and that's what we should, you know, in a way, to communicate more, because you don't know the fascination that the scientific world has in terms of the artists, and on the contrary as well. And I think sometimes each of us are in a very separated rooms, and I think one of the incredible things of these reunions is in a way that we discover each other and things that sometimes we don't think. Any question? Anything?
So let's start.
So thank you very much. My name is Takahiro Morio. So a professor in University of Tsukuba. Actually, so I'm collaborating with artists, manga, comic artist, to make some story. So consider from the viewpoint of scientist, it's very difficult to show, to make a balance between real science and reality of story. For example, so in many movies, so hackers type keyboard like this, but the reality is not. Or so Star Wars movie, the battle in the space, so make very great sound, but as you know, it doesn't happen. So, what do you think? So how to make a good balance between scientific, real, and reality of story?
I didn't understand. Yeah, it's true that with the artists, the films, sometimes they are not close to reality. They are much more, in a way, they don't intend to be precise. They talk much more to imagination than to exactly to the reality. And that is something that, like for when we are kids, the same. Sometimes we think on when we dream about the space or something like that, you think it completely out of reality. The films are not there, to show only the reality. They are there to show how we'd like the reality to be mostly of the time. And that's something that, gives us an enormous, liberty and an enormous kind of, that the scientists, well, they cannot afford to do it. There are, that's our, we have a privilege about that. We can be completely, in a way, imaginative and not going directly. But at the same time, you see there is films that put, science is always trying to explain and to understand and make us more, to try to get us more close to immortality sometimes, and at the same time, but the artist world many times have the intuition of things, and we are more, the artists are more, direct to our souls, how inside of us, how we can, in a way, be better, and in fronting a world that sometimes is so, aggressive against us. And one of the things that art doesn't destroy, mostly, the true art never destroys. On the contrary, they construct. And not science, and something that we heard yesterday. The science doesn't destroy, but technology sometimes destroys and can destroy the world. It's something that at least we cannot do. We don't work. We are not such in dangerous ground that sometimes the scientists are. And because, sometimes not the scientists, but what they made about what they discover can be absolutely terrible for the universe. And that is maybe something that is different because about the two things. That is something that and at the same time, for example, when you see everyone saw 2001 Space Odyssey, I think. Everyone is having the same question. What is this monolith block there? What it represents? And Kubrick had this enormous intuition to make us understand that we'll never understand everything. There will be always something to be understandable. That an artist only could transmit that. That is, I think, one example, that we always should have, that even if your research of going to understand everything, every step we give, let us go into the unknown. Even the science is the same, I think.
Mr. Branco, my name is Madi, and I work for the University of Tsukuba. First of all, I would like to congratulate you on receiving the Leonardo da Vinci World Award of Arts. And you talked about how science and art can be close to each other. I think that Da Vinci is the very epitome of that he didn't see those two things as separate. So I thought that was very befitting that you mentioned that part of the relationship between science and art.
Yes. You can see even in the names of the two prizes that are given here. Leonardo da Vinci is an artist or is a scientist. What he brought to us, I think some of us, admire him more like a painter, an artist. Other ones, for all the inventions that he could make in such a short period. Einstein, the same. Some of us, he's the most greatest genius in the science. For other ones, he's like a great artist that changed all our view of the world. All of us, after Einstein, cannot see the world the same way. So he's an artist. He's a poet. Even in his life, he was like that. And that is present in all of us. We have always a part of science, a part of art. Some of us are really, developing in incredible ways. It's Mr. Zhang that was here before. The science, the other ones gives to the world other science that are more, what you can say, untouchable, more going to the intuition, to our feelings, but change our lives. When you read, Homer, Moby Dick, Dostoevsky, that changed the life of someone. We understood that already at that time they knew everything. And all these years, we just keep going. We have to have this humility. And I think something that joins us, and that's why I think it's incredible that the two prizes, they choose the names of Einstein and Leonardo da Vinci, for example.
And I just have one question follow-up. Mr. Branco, I think that 30 years ago, I think that since 30 years ago, there's a trend in science and academia in terms of interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary attitudes. There's more talk about collaboration between the disciplines. So I just wanted to ask you, in terms of filmmaking, how has life changed since 30 years ago or 20 years ago?
Everything changed in the last 30 years in film. The world is full of image for everywhere. Full of image, much more than before. From everyone now is filming, even with his phones. Everything. Everyone can make image in a very. But that is different for making a true work of art. We have to, that is another thing. And it's true that new technology changed a lot. You can see not only in the Hollywood perspective, even in the more independent films, the way they brought the new technologies to the cinema is incredible. And now, for example, one of the there are a lot of you got a lot of works that you cannot say if they are really film, if they are really in installation, if they are architecture, if they are, because the ways of that you can use now, then that with new technology that brings a kind of new ways of working that opens you see, for example, the virtual reality, all the works that are being made with the usual, there is for example, a great singer I told about in Laurie Anderson. In Venice this year, she was on the jury of the new quality of competition called the virtual reality films, and all these at the same time they can exist because all these incredible advance of the way of the new technology, and the art is very aware that happens to the science and what they can use of the experience of the new scientists and the way they can transform it in with this freedom that they have. That is every day. What is now art, what is now filming, what is now painting, what is now, you see what David Hockney makes now with these small, telephones, all these, everything is changing all the time, and we are changing together, and that is what fascinating, that we live in an age that there is no more, blocks. Everything invades one to the other. The experience are every day, and and you can be aware of that, and that's something that's why my place now is different than it was 30 or 40 years ago. I have to be more and more curious about what's the things going, to be ready to try to help the new experiences,
Mathematicians have demonstrated the possibility of the existence of parallel universes. Sometimes artists create parallel universe. I am thinking about the curriculum of the training of young scientists, and how can art contribute to scientific creativity?
I think the artists have something that can be in advance of the science. They can dream, they can have intuitions, they can give propositions that they don't need to prove, other ones to prove it. And that happens all the time. After the scientist is different. No, the artist can fail. The scientists know. Yes, they can fail, but they can come back, and come back. An artist, when he does something, he knows that he cannot transform that. He's there. If he fails, he failed. That's one of the difference, you know. And sometimes, you know, there are, you see, when you read, for example, a book of Don DeLillo, that always thinks that some years after they happen, how he could add that intuition? I don't know. He doesn't know either. Artists are like mediums, you know. Sometimes, you know, they feel the things. They have such a sensibility, such an hypersensibility, that if they put in, they are in advance about. I'm not an artist. I'm just talking about experience I have with some of them, and things I felt, you know, that you can, you know, you cannot, you know, imagine that could be reality. And now the things are going fast, but, you know, we can see when it, you know, there are, you know, some directors that are so fascinating for the new, you know, for the science and everything, that sometimes they go faster than the scientists go. They can do it, because nobody can say if they are wrong. Maybe what they made was such incredible that, you know, nobody will judge them for that. They judge for what we can feel when we see their work, not for if they are real, not real. What is reality in this world? We don't know anymore. That's finished. Reality, we don't know anymore. You know, this world, I think, is something that we're very careful when we use them. That's what I can say, you know, but that's, you know, what I feel.
You said communication is important for creativity. So I believe so. Communication is also important in science research. So what is important for communication? I think so you have many trouble to communicate each other because you create a big team to make a cinema, right? So what is important to communicate each other?
Do you know, the communication is something that is in the center of my work as well, because one, you know, a masterpiece is a masterpiece if someone saw it. There is no masterpieces that nobody saw. Maybe, but we'll never know. There was a famous French writer, Marcel Proust, that said that, you know, yes, we can write masterpieces, but we have to have some lecture, not many, but at the beginning we have to have some. If not, no one will never know if it is a masterpiece. And my work is to make, in a way, is two levels of communication. I will come to your question, because I know that is not that. But one of my jobs is to make the films or the works I'm involved to have recognition, because all the artists, like the scientists, wants to that their work to be recognized, not to get prizes, but at least to be seen, to be recognized. Not some. It's sufficient to have, 4 or 5 good articles and incredible articles. Other ones, they want millions of spectators. There are a lot of difference of recognition that the artists want. And that is when you produce, is one of the things, the obligations you have after, is to make as well the films, in that case, to be seen, to be judged, that the directors and everyone that is involved can have this recognition and goes on doing his work. About the communication between them, about the science, is something that I'm working, when I do this festival. And the idea when I started 14 years ago, it was exactly to make the people meet one with each other. And a lot of different works were conceived between encounters in that festival. For example, when Paulo met for the first time John Cutchy, that it's a Nobel Prize of Literature, they start, a book of correspondence between of them. When they meet, a lot of them start working together. They met from different fields, completely different. And what I would like to develop is to bring the science world to these encounters. It's something that I love, because I think they will see between them that they are similar. They are completely similar, and they can be together. I know that some of you know certainly great artists, and some of the scientists are, and have these correspondence, and I think we can make them still, and that is one of my jobs of going a go-between, and that's what I intend to do in the next years, if the science permits me to stay some more years alive, But it's true that I think with the ways of communication we have today, I think easier, and we can be together much more times, even, changing, our experience,
Thank you very much. So, maybe last one.
Okay, last question. You said actually, excuse me, you said actually a couple of times during your lecture that you don't consider yourself to be an artist, if I understood you correctly. But I think in your work, you have essentially the ultimate kind of creative or artistic control over the end product, if I'm not mistaken. So why do you not consider yourself to be an artist?
Because it's not my dreams, it's their dreams. It's not my, it's not true. There are, in the last year there was films that I was involved from the beginning. And one of, for example, and I read once a book of Don DeLillo called Cosmopolis. And when I read it, I thought it was so incredible, modern, and sometimes putting problems about our society. It was written because the big crisis of 2008. It is in 2004, but already he speaks about a big crash, you know, with the money, the Chinese, you know, yen, not yen, the Chinese money, you know, and I thought, my son is here, told me, Papa, I think, you know, the one that could bring that to reality, to a film, should be David Cronenberg. And I had incredible admiration for Cronenberg. For example, Existence is a film as well that takes a lot of scientific point of views to exist, you know, after he gives a lot of freedom to them. Existence is a fantastic movie. And to be short, I came at a meeting with him in Toronto, and I told David, do you know the work of Don DeLillo? And he said, yes. And I said, do you know, I bought the rights of a small book, Cosmopolis. And he said, oh, I didn't read, but anyway, I cannot do, because I never accept, I'm at the origin of my films, and I never accept a proposition coming from any other one. And I said, but I let you the book, and you read it at least. And 24 hours after, he called me and said, Paulo, it's for me. It's what I want to do. It's exactly what I was expecting. I was all this time expecting for something like this. And he said, let's do it. And you know, in a way, I was at the origin of this project in Cosmopolis. You know, I don't know if you saw it. It was shown all over the world. It's a kind of an experimental movie as well, because he took the dialogues of Don DeLillo, that is not easy, you know, but it was so incredible, strong, and made the film with Robert Pattinson and everything. And even when we do it together, we do it discussing the actors, discussing everything, and then we work day by day but is his vision. And one of the things the other day, I think it was Sir Colin Merkel that was talking about visions, and how is the vision of the artist that interests me. It's the vision of each of them. It's the vision of that's what brings something new for the reality, is the visions, you know, and that is something that, but I cannot consider myself an artist. I am an artist, like all of us are artists, something but I'm not, I have a power, but I have still the power of destroying, because sometimes if I don't understand what they want, I will destroy the work they want to do. And that's, I have as well the power of giving them or trying to understand what they want, in a way that the film could be not a failure, and a film that rests for some of the films I produce still are seeing all over the world. And that's something, but they are not my films. But I have these, that's why it is creation producing, because when I saw them, I say, a small part of it is mine. This is mine. This is mine. Some of them more, some of them less, but there is always something. That's why each film is different. That's why I'm still want to go on, and to discover other artists with their vision, they fulfill me. That's what I want, you know. And but I think I answered you, but thank you.
Okay. So thank you, Ms. Branco, for your inspiring talk and discussion. Thank you very much. So before closing this session, so please join me again to thanking two distinguished guests. Thank you very much.